Are you truly happy? Or just pretending to be? It's strange, isn't it? The way you can smile for the camera, laugh at the right moments, post the right captions, and still, when the noise quiets, feel like you're barely holding it together. There's a certain type of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from pretending for too long, pretending to be okay, pretending to not care, pretending to feel loved when deep down, you feel alone in a room full of people. You carry this silence in your chest, like a secret, a silent agreement between you and the version of you the world wants to see. The strong one, the successful one, the one who doesn't break down at midnight when no one's watching. But let me ask you quietly, what if that mask is what's keeping you from everything real? What if the version of you you've spent years perfecting is the very reason your heart feels so distant, so numb? I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to offer you another list of steps to happiness or tell you to think positive. You've heard it all before, and honestly, you deserve more than surface-level comfort. This isn't a story. This is a mirror, one that might hurt to look into at first, but it sees you. It sees the cracks you've been trying to glue together. It sees the little child in you that still flinches at raised voices. It sees the adult in you pretending that all of that doesn't still echo inside. If you're still here, listening, it's not an accident. Maybe this is the moment where something shifts. Not because I said something magical, but because you're finally ready to stop running from your own truth. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet ache in your chest has been trying to lead you home all along. So if you feel something stirring in you, something that says, yes, this is for me, then stay with me. Take a breath. Unclench your jaw. You don't have to perform here. This video will walk with you, not ahead of you. And if you feel that resonance, that quiet knowing, let's keep going together. If something already feels seen, I hope you'll subscribe and share this with someone who might be silently fighting the same battles. Because we all wear masks, but not everyone has the courage to take them off. Sometimes it starts young. You were only a child, too young to know the language of wounds, too innocent to know that love could come with conditions. Maybe you were the peacekeeper, the golden child, the one who learned to read the room before you even learned to read words. You knew when not to speak. You knew when to shrink yourself. You became fluent in silence. And so, slowly, something inside you broke off. You didn't even notice it happen. You just knew that it was safer to be agreeable. It was better to be praised than to be real. You learned to smile through pain and call it strength. To never ask for too much. To apologize even when it wasn't your fault. That's how the pretending began. Not the loud kind, the subtle kind. The kind that hides in the way you say, I'm fine, when your voice cracks. In the way you offer help to others when you're the one falling apart. In the way you've learned to turn off your needs, because somewhere along the way, someone taught you that they were too much. And now, years later, you're here. Achieving, functioning, smiling, posting, laughing. And yet, when you're finally alone, when the world goes quiet and there's no one left to impress, you feel hollow, not because you're broken, but because you've built your life on surviving, not on feeling. You've mastered the art of appearing whole, and you wonder why your soul still aches. It's not your fault. You did what you had to do to belong, to be safe, to be loved. But survival isn't the same as living, and pretending isn't the same as peace. Maybe you've reached that place where you're so good at hiding that even you can't tell what's real anymore. You second-guess your feelings. You minimize your pain. You question your worth every time someone leaves. And deep down, you're tired. You're not weak for feeling that way. You're not dramatic. You're not broken. You're just finally hearing the parts of yourself you had to abandon. The little voice that says, what about me? The soft cry that says, I'm not okay. The buried truth that whispers, this version of you, they love her, but they don't know you. And that's the ache that lingers, isn't it? It's not just the loneliness. It's the fear that if you finally show them who you really are, they'll walk away. But here's something no one told you back then. The version of you that hides to be loved will never feel loved, because it's not you they're loving, it's your mask. And that's why it feels so empty, so fragile. It's not that you're too much. It's that your soul is starving for honesty. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is to let someone see the real you, even if your voice shakes when you do it. There's a quiet kind of grief that lives in people who've had to be strong for too long. It doesn't scream, it doesn't always cry. But it sits there just beneath the surface waiting to be held, not hidden. Waiting for someone to say, "You don't have to do this alone anymore." But here's the thing, maybe no one ever said that to you. Maybe the world praised your resilience but ignored your exhaustion. Maybe they called you independent when really you just had no one to depend on. So you became self-sufficient, not because you wanted to, but because you had to. You learned how to swallow your needs like they were sins, how to take up less space so others could breathe, how to turn your breakdowns into jokes and your trauma into performance. And still, you ask yourself, why does happiness feel so far away? Because happiness requires presence. And how can you be present in a life where you're not allowed to be real? You've been running a marathon in someone else's shoes, trying to arrive at a version of joy that doesn't even fit you. And every time you feel a flicker of joy, you push it away. Why? Because joy is vulnerable. Joy means your heart is open. And when your heart is open, it can be hurt again. You've been taught by pain, by betrayal, by the cold absence of people who should have stayed that vulnerability is dangerous. So now, every time something good happens, you wait for it to be taken. You don't trust the peace when it comes. You hold your breath, waiting for the next disappointment. But what if peace isn't the absence of pain? What if peace is the presence of truth? Even if that truth is messy, even if that truth is inconvenient, even if that truth is, I'm not happy, I'm surviving, and I'm tired. You don't have to hide that anymore. You don't need to keep pretending that the job is fulfilling when your soul feels numb, that the relationship is healthy when your heart feels starved, that you're content when you've forgotten what desire even feels like, because the truth will haunt you until it's heard. It will show up in your body, in your restlessness, in your anxiety, in your unexplained sadness. The ache in your chest isn't random. It's a message, and the longer you avoid it, the louder it gets. There's no shame in admitting that the life you've built looks good but feels empty. That's not failure. That's awakening. And the moment you start telling the truth, even if only to yourself, is the moment you begin to come alive again. Do you remember the last time you truly laughed? Not the polite kind, not the one that says, "I'm okay," just loud enough to convince yourself, but the kind that bubbles up from your chest and spills out before you can stop it. The kind that makes you feel, even just for a moment, like everything is going to be all right. Maybe it's been a while. Maybe you don't remember. And that's okay, because when you've been in survival mode for years, joy feels foreign, unsafe even. Like a language you once spoke fluently but have long since forgotten. You became fluent in endurance, in pushing through, in making sure everyone else was okay even when you weren't. And now you're here, tired, burnt out, emotionally overdrawn. You wake up every morning and wear your face like armor. You smile, you nod, you keep going. But somewhere along the way, you stop living. You started existing, and existence without expression is a slow death. You know this. Your body knows this. That's why you feel tension in your shoulders, tightness in your chest, a strange disconnection you can't explain. Like you're walking through your own life like a guest. Because you've been performing for so long, you don't remember who you were before the applause, before the approval, before the pressure to always be okay. And here's something you might need to hear today. You are allowed to fall apart. Not just allowed, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes falling apart is the most honest thing you can do. Because only when the mask shatters can you finally see your own face again. It's terrifying, I know, because the world doesn't always offer safety to people who feel deeply. You've probably been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But let me tell you something no one else did. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a compass. It's the part of you that still believes in beauty, in truth, in connection. The part of you that aches when things are fake, because you crave something real. You've been gaslighting your own heart for years, telling it to get over it, telling it to move on, telling it that its pain is not valid. But your heart never needed fixing. It needed listening. It needed you to stop editing your emotions and start honoring them. Because you're not broken, you're bruised, and bruises heal best when they're not hidden. So if today, all you can do is admit you're not okay, then that's more than enough. That's courage. That's the beginning of coming home to yourself. Sometimes healing doesn't look like light pouring through the cracks. Sometimes it looks like sitting in the dark and choosing not to run this time. It looks like crying in the car and not wiping the tears away too fast. It looks like finally answering the question, "How are you?" with something other than, I'm fine, because you're not fine. You're exhausted from pretending to be. You're tired of shrinking, tired of fixing, tired of being the one who always adjusts so others feel comfortable while you silently drown. You've outgrown the roles they gave you. The caretaker, the overachiever, the one who never complains. You were taught that love is something you earn, that rest is something you don't deserve unless you've suffered first. And so you learn to betray yourself beautifully, quietly. You learn to give more than you had, to love those who never chose you, to convince yourself that crumbs were a feast. And now, you're not angry, not yet, just hollow, like a house with no furniture, like a song you used to know but can't remember the words to. Because how do you come back to yourself when you've spent your whole life being everything but you? The answer, softly. You come back by listening to the sadness you buried, to the anger you denied, to the desires you called selfish, to the boundaries you never enforced. You come back by remembering who you were before you needed to be liked, before you learned that people-pleasing kept you safe. You come back by grieving, not just the losses, but the versions of you that had to die so you could survive. The version that dreamed freely, the version that laughed without fear, the version that loved without needing to earn it. They didn't leave. They're just waiting, waiting for you to say, I'm ready, ready to stop performing, ready to feel again, ready to build a life that feels like yours, not just one that looks good to everyone else. And maybe it starts small, noticing the way your chest tightens around certain people, letting yourself rest without guilt, saying no without a 10-sentence explanation. And maybe the people around you don't understand the shift. Maybe they say, you've changed, and you have. You've stopped betraying yourself to be loved. You've stopped abandoning your truth to make others comfortable. You've stopped performing happiness and started choosing honesty. That's not weakness. That's rebirth. There's a moment quiet, unceremonious, when the pretending just stops. Not because you made a big announcement, not because you reached some grand enlightenment, but because one morning you wake up and realize that carrying the mask has become heavier than the truth it was built to hide. You look in the mirror, and the reflection doesn't lie to you anymore. You see the fine lines around your eyes from all the forced smiles. You see the tiredness that sleep won't fix. You see someone who's been fighting battles no one even knows exist, and maybe for the first time, you don't look away. You don't rush to fix it with makeup or pep talks or a productivity checklist. You just let it be. You let yourself be seen by you, and that's when something shifts. You stop needing to be understood by people who only loved the edited version of you. You stop trying to explain your pain to people who haven't earned the right to hear it. You stop chasing approval like it's oxygen, and you start asking yourself the harder question, what do I need? And maybe the answer doesn't come easily, because when you've lived for others for so long, your own needs feel like foreign territory. You hesitate before speaking. You feel guilty for resting. You second-guess your no and apologize for your yes. But the truth is, reclaiming yourself is not a straight line. Some days, you'll slip back into old patterns. You'll overextend. You'll smile when you don't mean it. You'll give too much and feel empty again. That's okay. Healing isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing not to stay broken. It's about catching yourself in the act of self-abandonment and saying, "Number not this time." It's about walking out of rooms that no longer feel safe, even if you have to leave alone. It's about building a new home inside yourself, a place where your feelings are not just tolerated, but welcomed, because you've spent too long in exile from your own heart. And I know, it's terrifying to come back, to sit with everything you've been running from, the grief, the rage, the fear of being unlovable. But underneath all that, there's still you, the real you, the you that existed before the world told you who you had to be, the you that remembers how to feel deeply, love wildly, speak honestly. She's not gone, she's just been waiting. And now, slowly, gently, bravely, you're finding your way back. Not to a version of you that's polished and palatable, but to the one who is raw, untamed, alive. And maybe, somewhere in this quiet unraveling, you realize something you never saw before. You were never broken. You were just shaped by environments that didn't know how to hold you. You grew in soil that fed you just enough to survive, not enough to bloom. You were told to be small, so you became invisible. You were told to be good, so you forgot how to be real. You were told to toughen up, so you buried your softness, mistaking numbness for strength. And now, as you trace the edges of your truth, you see it clearly. All those times you called yourself too much. You were simply too alive for spaces that had grown too used to dead things. You were not too loud. You were surrounded by people who only understood silence. You were not too sensitive. You were feeling what others spent their whole lives running from. And your pain, that deep, aching sadness, it was never your enemy. It was the part of you still whispering, I want more. More depth. More truth. More realness in a world of masks and filters and shallow smiles. And maybe now, you finally listen. Not because it's convenient, not because it's easy, but because pretending to be happy has cost you too much. You've missed too many moments hiding behind, I'm okay. You've ignored too many red flags just to keep someone from leaving. You've betrayed your own boundaries just to avoid being alone. But being alone with your truth is far more peaceful than being surrounded by people who require your silence. You're allowed to choose peace over performance. You're allowed to outgrow the life you built while you were asleep. You're allowed to start again, without the mask, without the act. Just you, uncurated, unfiltered, unapologetically raw. And the people who truly see you, they won't need convincing. They won't love you despite your truth. They'll love you because of it. Because there is nothing more magnetic than someone who has stopped pretending. And if no one's told you this yet today, you're not hard to love. You've just been loving people who couldn't meet you in the depths. But the right ones, the real ones, they don't run from your emotions. They sit in them with you. They don't ask you to shrink. They expand to meet you. And most importantly, they don't need you to pretend. Because what's real can't be threatened. And what's real starts with you. You don't heal by pretending the past didn't happen. You heal by letting it speak. And sometimes, that voice is quiet at first. A memory that surfaces without warning. A lump in your throat when someone speaks a little too harshly. A familiar ache that visits in the middle of joy, reminding you not everything was safe growing up. That's not weakness. That's the wisdom of your nervous system whispering, this used to hurt, and it's okay to hurt. It's okay to still be angry about things they said were no big deal. It's okay to still grieve people who were never really there. It's okay to miss what you never actually had, because grief isn't just for loss. It's also for the love you never received, for the versions of you that were never held, for the stories you had to rewrite just to survive. And the more you stop pretending, the more you begin to feel. At first, it's overwhelming, a dam breaking. You cry more easily. You feel more tender. You get emotional over things that never used to touch you. That's not regression. That's restoration. It means your heart is thawing. It means the ice that kept you functional is melting. And now, you're not just existing, you're experiencing. Love hits deeper. Music sounds richer. Silence becomes sacred instead of scary. And yes, it also means pain will visit again. But this time you won't fear it. Because you've learned, emotions are not emergencies. They're messengers. They don't come to destroy you, they come to deliver you. And as they pass through, as you breathe through every wave, something holy happens. You come back to life, not the version they liked. Not the version that was easy to digest, but the version that knows, I don't need to earn love by being less of me. I can be tender and powerful. I can cry and still be whole. I can be healing and still be worthy of joy. And one day, you'll look at yourself in the mirror, not for approval, not for validation, but with reverence. You'll meet your own eyes and think, I didn't abandon you this time. And that moment? That's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of everything real. There comes a day not marked by fireworks or milestones when you finally sit in your own presence and feel safe, not entertained, not distracted, not performing. You're safe, safe in your own skin, safe in your silence, safe in your sadness. And it's not because everything around you changed. It's because you did. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped begging for crumbs and calling it a feast. You stopped asking, what's wrong with me? And started asking, what harmed me? And when you did that, the shame loosened its grip. The guilt began to dissolve. The walls you built out of fear started to feel less like protection and more like a prison. And so, brick by brick, you started dismantling what no longer served you. The relationships that only loved your silence. The roles you played just to feel needed. The beliefs that kept you chained to a version of happiness that never truly fit. You began honoring your no. You began trusting your yes. You began taking up space not with arrogance but with truth. And people noticed. Some celebrated. Some resisted. Some tried to pull you back into your old shape because it was easier for them when you stayed small. But you kept going, Not because it was easy, not because you were fearless, but because the cost of pretending had become too great. You realized you'd rather be real and rejected than fake and accepted. You realized peace was more precious than approval. You realized your truth might make you lose people, but it would never make you lose yourself. And slowly, that grief you carried like a second skin, it softened, not disappeared, but softened into wisdom, into discernment, into compassion, not just for others, but for the younger you who tried so hard just to belong. And now, you walk differently, not with swagger or ego, but with presence, because you know what it took to arrive here. You know the nights you cried into your own hands. You know the days you showed up anyway, even when your heart felt heavy. You are not the same. You're softer now, stronger now, more honest than ever. Not perfect, but whole. And maybe that was the point all along, to stop trying to be someone better and start remembering who you were before the pretending began. There's this quiet morning you wake into, not the kind that demands action, but the kind that gently asks, are you ready to feel peace now? And for the first time, your answer isn't confused or panicked or masked with busy. It's soft, it's honest, it's a maybe, a real maybe. The kind that carries hope, because you no longer chase happiness like it's a finish line. You've stopped needing the big, dramatic proof of worth. You've stopped trying to prove that you're lovable by sacrificing yourself for it. Instead, you begin to notice the subtle joys that used to slip past you, the way sunlight pours through the window and lands on your hands, the smell of something familiar that reminds you of a time when you still believed in magic, the pause between your inhale and exhale that says, we're still here. And yes, you still carry sadness. You still have days where the ache returns like an old companion, but now you don't shove it down. You make space at the table for it. You let it speak, then you let it go, because emotions aren't meant to be conquered. They're meant to be witnessed. And healing? It doesn't make you untouchable, it makes you transparent. Not fragile, true. You no longer use your wounds to keep people away, but you also don't hand them out carelessly to those who haven't earned your truth. You protect your peace not with armor, but with boundaries. Not with walls, but with discernment. And your love? It's different now too. It's not desperate, not performative, not earned through silence or overgiving. It's rooted, safe, generous, but never at the cost of your soul, because you've finally understood. You can give without disappearing. You can serve without self-sacrificing. You can love without losing yourself. And now, when someone tries to dim your light, you don't beg them to see you. You simply step away, not because you're bitter, but because you're done proving your worth to those who only value your wounds. You've become sacred to yourself. You've become whole in the places you once abandoned, and you carry yourself with a softness that is not weakness, it is power. Because the most powerful thing a person can do is to be fully alive in a world that teaches you to numb. And you're alive again, not just breathing, feeling. And no, it's not perfect. It's not always poetic. Some days you'll still stumble, still cry, still want to disappear. But now, you return to yourself faster. You don't stay lost for long, because home is no longer a place outside of you. It's you. It's always been you. So now when someone asks, are you happy? You pause, not because you don't know the answer, but because you finally want to answer truthfully. You smile, not out of habit, but from a place that feels real. And maybe your answer isn't loud. Maybe it's not the kind of happiness that fits in a photo or sounds like a victory speech. Maybe it's something softer, something quieter, something like, I'm not pretending anymore. Because that's what happiness begins as, not a high, not a performance, not a peak moment you chase forever, but the gentle return to your own skin, the quiet dignity of being honest with your soul. And the things that once hurt to admit, they become sacred truths you carry with tenderness. Like how you loved people who didn't love you back. How you stayed too long in places that asked you to be someone you weren't. How you dimmed your joy just to keep others from feeling insecure. You don't shame yourself for those things anymore, because you understand now they were never signs of weakness. They were signs that you were still learning what love is supposed to feel like. And now you know, love doesn't make you abandon yourself. Love doesn't thrive in silence. Love doesn't punish your truth. And the real miracle is that you began giving yourself that love first. You began speaking to yourself with kindness. You stopped calling your needs too much. You stopped waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel whole. And even when it was lonely, even when you missed the comfort of pretending, you stayed. With you, you stayed through the tears, Through the confusion, through the unraveling, you stayed through the uncomfortable middle, the place where your old life no longer fit, but your new life hadn't fully taken shape yet. And because you stayed, you began to heal, not just on the surface, but in the places you thought were permanently broken. You stopped looking for rescue. You stopped needing validation to believe in your worth. You started walking like someone who belongs to herself, and now the world feels different, not because it changed, but because you did. Because you finally answered the most important question of all. Not, are you happy? But, are you free? And with your hand over your heart, and your eyes clear for the first time in years, you whispered, yes.